Will, do you agree if Lutz could take a Felby's, then he'd be pretty good?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Gollum's Gamers podcast. So today we are back after a small hiatus, but it's with one of our regular GBHL 100 preview episodes, where today we're going to be previewing the Grand Prix, which is a 700-point event, which is ran by our guest today, who is world champion. It's not 700 points, it's 600 points. Thanks for that. He's on his game already, nice and early. Love to see it. So, Will, thank you for joining us this evening. How's things?
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So before we get underway, there's a couple of kind of housekeeping things. So first of all, I just wanted to mention we are now on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen. So go and check that.
No.
There's a link in the description. So if you could go and drop us a cheeky follow, I would appreciate that. Second of all, we are joined tonight by Ben Haslam, who's someone I've viewed.
Let's go, Ben.
On the channel. But he is one of our newest members on the team heading into this 2024 season. So did you want to give a brief background, Ben, kind of on your time, playing MESBG for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Hey, guys. New to the team. Thanks for recruiting me, / being bullied into having me.
We got the better, brother. That's all that matters.
Yeah, good, Scott. Yeah, I came into playing after COVID, really. Did the usual thing that everyone else did.
I did as well.
Played when younger, had a break, came back after COVID, and enjoyed it. And then faffed around with ruffians for God knows a part of a year. And then I discovered I could actually take sensible lists, or sensible-ish lists. Yeah.
And aren't you on a cheeky little 90 streak coming into 2024? Is that right?
I have won my first 90, yes.
Let's go.
He's doing bits for the Gollum's Gamers.
Already racking up more points than Eliott.
Already, and I've been here for a whole 2023 season. Yeah, no. The shots are flying early. Love to see it. But no, honestly, welcome to the team. And obviously, you'll be seeing Ben kind of on our pods throughout the year. So moving kind of towards the event. So Will, obviously, I'm hoping you could kind of give a brief background on the event. But you also have your own kind of things, your Patreon, if you wanted to kind of educate our listeners on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll shill myself first, and then I'll talk about the event and whatnot. So I've been playing this game for an alarming amount of time. I think it's over a decade now, which has really flown by. In my time, I've done pretty well. I've managed to win the league twice. I've won quite a few hundreds. I've captained Team England, and I've been the top ranked single player at the WTC twice. So I've been around a little bit.
That is a hard flex.
Round the block.
I like that from you.
Just got to come out with it, don't I?
Just lay it all on the table. Just slap.
I've made many friends along the way. In doing that, I then sort of got an appetite for running my own events. When I started playing, the league was very, very small. And it was more kind of one big group of friends that traveled around the country to play each other, and then it's grown to the enormous magnitude that it is now.
And with that, did you ever go to any of the events in East Grinstead, which I've heard were special events?
So I went to one East Grinstead event and I managed to win it. So it's got a special place in my heart. Yeah.
I totally grew up in East Grinstead, like that's where I'm from. So then
it was awesome, and that's how like all of the events used to be.
Yeah.
So that was back when there was 1,200 pointers a year, and now there's like 1 million. And I lived up in Yorkshire at that time, so it was like a 7.5-hour drive down there, which was a completely reasonable thing to do back then.
Yeah.
Because you either went to the events that were there or you didn't. And it was upstairs in a little pub, and all of the tables were on level.
I know the pub.
Yep. It was just the perfect character event, and almost all of the events were like that. Yeah. And then you'd be really sort of spoilt for choice if you went to an event that was in a gaming center that had like actual tables and terrain and stuff. And the way that things have come on is wild, because that was literally what it was. It was like anyone that could have a garage or a space to host an event, you'd go to it. Yeah, 100%. So in sort of progressing my nerd career, I ended up working at Seventh City, became their event manager, which gave me a much bigger resource to run events at. But in doing all of this, I decided to, it'd be a good time to pass on some wisdom that I've learned over the years. Clearly, I've got something vaguely right. So now I run a Patreon sort of focused at competitive play. So you can subscribe and get an article every fortnight, sort of talking about different scenarios, different lists, things that people do wrong. And that comes with access to our community Discord as well, where we can sort of talk about list ideas. And I'm sort of on call, almost all the time to sort of answer questions and field advice and whatnot. And then there's a higher tier where you get to come and sort of play games against me once a month or so, and do sort of one-on-one tutorship. And that can be as simple as, we play a game and I take lots of notes and then we talk about the things after, or we can play with sort of the training wheels on and I'll intervene if something really dumb's about to happen and sort of work around what that was. So that's been really popular. That's the shill part. If anyone wants to sign up, I'm sure we can get a link in the description. I think we've got the technology for that.
We do.
And then onto the GP. So I've run lots of competitive events. I've run lots of 100-pointers and lots of quirky, interesting ones too. And I always wanted to run what I would feel would be the most competitive event on the calendar. And so it's something that's grown over the last 2 years. We did a little trial in the shop, and then we booked out a hotel last year, and then we've done the same this year. So the way that the format works is it's 100 players, excluding some dropouts and whatnot. On day one, it runs as like a classic Swiss event, like you'd have at any tournament. And then at the end of day one, depending on how well you've done, you'll then get seeded into pods for day two. Essentially, what it offers is no matter how badly your day one goes, you're playing for like a separate pool of prizes. So everybody still has a chance to win something, even if you get absolutely bodied day one. The biggest, coolest pod being the top 8 cut, and that is a unique format where it's a knockout using the veto system. Anyone that top 8 gets a free ticket to next year to return and try and defend their title. And then there's a load of prizes as well, with the top prize being a Smaug. So it draws a lot of people. So you get a lot of the competitive players, but also the more casual players too, because they know that once the day one sorting is gone, they can have quite a relaxed but competitive day two. Awesome. And we've spent just over £1,000 on prize support this year. So there's plenty to go at.
I do like that. Yeah, you don't see many events. I think the event I can think of that would have a similar level of kind of prize support is probably Unnumbered Tears with Ed. Having
for sure.
The 2 years that I've been there, that's been like a really key part of the event that lots of people gravitate towards. So having
absolutely
prize pool with people able to play for things even into day two, if they're not in the top pods, you're still able to play for something. So
that's the bit that the feedback's been really good for, because there are events, there's probably events that spend even more on prize support, but it's normally like a really Gucci sword for the podiums, which is awesome. And I've got an umbrella stand full of swords, so I'm a big fan of that strategy. But it's nice to sort of have the prizes trickle down too and let everybody have opportunities.
To win.
So we've got a sponsored pod by the Guardians of Wiltshire, with all of their cool 3D stuff. We've got a pod sponsored by Generation Shift that do the amazing resin bases. We've got a pod sponsored by SBG magazine with lots of copies of their magazine. So there's basically something for everyone. And I'm really excited to do it this year.
Yeah. Did any of us go last year? Do we know? Any of the Gollums gamers? I'm not sure we did. Did Jay go last year? Or you, Ben?
I went to the first one.
Oh, you went to the first
last year. Yeah.
I wonder if Jay went last year. Maybe he did. But yeah, I don't think any of us went.
Outrageous.
So we're here this year. We're coming out in force this year.
It's awesome. I can't wait.
The whole squad, and we'll also be unveiling our new merchandise at the event, the debut for the GP. So, but we are ready to kind of move into the stats. So Will has graciously worked very hard on putting these together. So thank you very much for that. And we are going to start, as we usually do, with the Alliance breakdown for the event. So for the audio listeners, we have the highest percentage of the army breakdown is pure lists, with 35% of the field being a pure list. 33% of them are legendary legions, 28 are green, and only 4% being yellow alliances. Is that maybe a little bit lower than we usually see compared to other previews? I wonder if there's any reason why that is at 600.
Well, without sort of doing too many spoilers about what the lists actually contain, I think there's a couple of lists that do particularly well at 600 points. Obviously, Legendary Legions always have a pretty dominant slice of the wedge. But that Green Alliance is taken up almost exclusively by two lists, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit.
Yes.
And I guess the Yellow Alliance, because of the Valor rule, I was about to say the new Valor rule, it's been around for years now. But that kind of comes with a bit of a points tally, doesn't it, to make sure that you can take the heroes that you need. And I think at 600 points, it might be a little bit too tight for some of the lists that you might commonly see that are yellow.
Yeah, that or yellow. Yeah, I think so for sure. So any comments from anyone else before we move on? But if you're going to the event, this is the kind of breakdown that you can see at the event. No? Okay. We will move on to the spicy stuff. We will move on to the leader breakdown.
This is my favorite chart I have ever seen in SVG, by the way.
The audio listener. So the leader that you will be seeing the most if you are going to the event this weekend is going to be the 60 point, if he's on a Felwarg, the humble Narzug with 10 appearances. 100. How many tickets have you sold? 100?
Yeah, we sold 100 tickets. I think the attendance is going to be about 95, 96.
Okay, yeah, so 10 Narzugs at the event. Then in second place, we have the Witch King. Imagine another leader beating the Witch King with 8 appearances. In third place, we have Theoden with 6 appearances. Then with 4, we have things like Aragorn, Elrond, Suladan, the Dragon Emperor, and Thror. And then a number of other leaders after that. So who wants to kick us off?
This is what happens, Will, when you decide not to have Contest of Champions as one of the pre-selected scenarios and then allow veto day 2, because then nobody goes, contest could come up. That would be a shame.
Also veto.
And you just, if that pool turns up, they just go, no. And then...
Yeah, I regret nothing.
Narzug is just able to vibe around.
Now, Will, as a very experienced Azog's Hunters player, obviously contest isn't a great scenario for it. Obviously, depending on what you come up against, but I don't think it's unwinnable at all. I don't even think it's that hard depending on the matchup. Obviously, it isn't ideal, but you do have a 2-attack mounted hero with 3 might behind it, with strikers that you can pair with it to combat off of stuff and everything. Would you say it's
for sure
that hard?
If memory serves, and I am getting old now, so it might not be quite as reliable. I think I've only lost contest with Hunter Orcs once, and that was because Narzug died to like 2 survivors of Lake Town, pretty against the odds. The thing that Hunter Orcs have the ability to do is you've got Fimble and Yazneg that they've got 6 heroic strikes between them, which can really slow a hero down. And no hero is really that safe going into Hunter Orcs because if they win the fight, they'll kill him. But if they don't win the fight, there's every chance that the Hunter Orcs will return with interest.
Yeah.
It's obviously not the dream scenario when someone like Narzug is your leader, but it's definitely not unwinnable.
No, I don't think so.
It would just suggest that Hunter Orcs are the meta choice for 600 points, as I think we've discussed quite a lot in our chat that Hunter Orcs are the list to beat. Quite literally, Jake won last year with them, so they're back to retain their glory. And I think people have tried to build lists. I'm sure we'll get into them. Build lists to specifically counter Hunter Orcs. Whether or not they'll be able to is, what we'll find out. But 10% of them failed.
One of the best things about Hunter Orcs, and the reason why this chart makes me so happy, is I've been talking about Hunter Orcs for years now, and it's like they've finally caught on. So I'm never going to take them again because they're cool now. But the
are you doing the faux Ali? I only take things that are rubbish kind of.
Me and Ali are brothers in arms in that ideology, and we have been for quite some time. The thing with Hunter Orcs is you can't necessarily build a list against them because what they're good at is winning the scenarios. And so you have to have a list that can beat them up in combat, but also outmaneuver them, and that's normally where it falls down. Because almost all of these lists have got, the Goblin Mercenaries in, which just let you auto win quite a few scenarios. They're incredibly fast. but they also hit really hard as well. So they're not really an underdog in any scenario other than maybe contest, you'd argue. So if you spent a load of your brain power trying to spec into an army that beats them up, you don't necessarily win the scenario against them, and that's kind of where they thrive.
Now, looking at the chart though, I'm only seeing one Musger. I thought 600 is a fairly decent spot for AOL, isn't it? Or is it a bit lower?
No.
Is it a bit lower? Okay.
Either lower or like 750, 800, particularly with the FAQ for having as many orcs as you have goblins. You can't really spam the numbers out at 600, and you normally only get 3 of the heroes as well. So you have to make some difficult decisions.
Yeah, it's lower then. Yeah. James, Vince, Ben, any thoughts on the leader breakdown?
Yeah, I was going to say Helm's Guard is actually quite a good list of 600. I considered that one as well. And it looks like only one person's bringing that. But it is actually a very solid list of 600. You can max out. You get a lot of Fight 5, a lot of D6.
Helm's an
Helm, a lot of throwing spears. It is a really good list.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out to our Lord Eliott, the stats wizard, that you've got Master of Lake Town on 2 appearances, and then all the way down on 1 appearance, the Master of Lake Town.
Now,
that's my error, not Eliott.
Now,
oh no!
Who are you trying to dog me? Actually,
you can't cover for him.
I'll own that.
He's a good guy.
I think that the biggest list omission that surprised me was the fact that spoiler alert, there's only one Azog as the leader here, which isn't that surprising at 600 points. But when you think that Azog is likely leading Pits of Dol Guldur, which is very good at 600 points,
true.
I'm really surprised to not see more of that.
I guess it's just with how good the the pure Hunter Orc list is with the named heroes and the mercs.
Maybe that just seems like the more obvious choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you not always back Hunter Orcs in general over Pits?
Yeah, I'd say so, because you can very easily make a mistake with Azog and lose yourself the game, can't you? You've got a 200-point model that's defense 5, and that can go really wrong real fast.
He charges 2 Hunter Orcs, rolls are too high, and now he's really upset.
Exactly.
Debate, yeah. Any more thoughts from anyone generally?
I want to give a huge shout out to the guy that's taken Durbers as his leader.
Durbers.
Chad. We love a good Durbers.
I think as Will said, like, you get quite a few different people at this event because there's always something to play for. I think you can kind of see that in some of the leaders, like there being a couple bolts, like 4 Aragorns. It's maybe a little bit rogue, something you'd expect, so a really competitive 100.
A Ratabi in there? Is that Ben Haslam?
Nope. Not this time. I do love me a Rutabi.
You do. Following in your footsteps. A Sharku down there. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Will, they're obviously looking at your master's list.
There's a sneaky Balrog in there as well, which is quite satisfying. It's not a list that would jump out at you as competitive, but if you end up playing against that, it could definitely ruin your day, couldn't it?
Oh no.
1,000%.
Yeah, something beating the Witch King though in the amount of appearances. I wonder how many of those. I think I saw there were 4 Angmars potentially. Let's move on so that we can find that out for ourselves. To the faction breakdown. So, kind of leading previous slide that we can see for the audio listeners at the top spot we have Azog's Hunters with 12 appearances for the faction overall throughout all the lists which will be at the event. Close behind, we have Azog's Legion with 11 appearances. We'll touch on that in a moment. Then after that, we have 7 appearances, the Serpent Horde. 6 appearances, we have Mordor and Riders of Theoden. Then with 4, we have Angmar, Army of Thror, Host of the Dragon Emperor, Minas Tirith, and Rivendell. So who would like to go first?
Vince is clearly inspiring a new generation of Riders of Theoden players, and I'm totally for it.
For it.
Shout out to Vince for being a goat, as always.
It's best list in the game at 600 and below.
It certainly is.
Hunter Orcs, when you call death, just die, man. So
yeah, they
I don't know what the hype's about.
You trolloped Adam the other day, didn't you, Vince?
Yeah, man. You just go in and scream death, and then they just die.
Watch them die.
For
Great.
clearly all the people that watched out into the West preview would have heard Vince's death scream. And the viewers expect such a nervous event to occur at the GP, because that's something they will want to see.
I hope so. Follow our Instagram to see the screen. It will be on there.
Eliott would totally forfeit his game just to get a clip for the Instagram as well.
Just turn to your
this-
left during your game and you'll just see this.
For those that are part of my Patreon already, one of the meta articles I did at the end of last year, and the things that I was sort of pitching for this year, Riders of Theoden was one of the ones that I said would sort of break the meta wheel a little bit, because they do pivot into Hunter Orcs very well, and they've also got a reasonable crack at Iron Hills because they started to feature a little bit more heavily at the end of last year, just because you've got quite a lot of Strength 5, Fight 5. And they can give the Mordor Serpent Horde list a run for its money, particularly at 600 when you're only really going to have one caster, as long as you can keep Theoden alive long enough to get there. Again, if you call death, the Black Numenorians aren't going to stand up to it at all.
They totally melt, and it does make me sad.
Yeah, and Ash, with your one Witch King, which of the heroes do you choose to slow down when Vince has 5?
Just transfix Theoden every turn, and then he can never call death.
The master plan.
It's fine. Then the rest of the heroes just use their regular might to do hero combat.
Yeah, they go, it's okay, we got this round.
But looking down kind of in the factions, there's a couple of people taking Khan at 600, which ours truly Sam Grattan was very pleased to hear today when I told him in the chat.
If you'd like to send Sam Grattan your spare Khan models, we'll link a PO box in the description. He isn't able to afford 600 points, unfortunately. Sad small violin.
Our previous back rep, the Hero of Lemon, episode 1, where Sam's Khan completely rolls over Ashley.
Took a massive shit on my head.
Certainly did.
It was that was a very entertaining battle report. If anyone hasn't seen it, I would very much recommend it.
Hero of Lemon episode 2 is coming soon.
The thing is, the Candy's actually quite a good call. Again, looking at the field, because they can actually completely demolish Azog's Hunters.
Yeah. I've played against Khan before with Azog's Hunters against Sam. Although he can't recall the game, I don't know why. He absolutely railed me. It's not fun at D4.
And as Sam would have said probably multiple times on the pods, the Chariot's like bulwark effect is really, really, really tough. So even though the Hunter Orcs get there, like say that you charge 2 and whiff, they've got their 4 attacks. Only one of them's going up on the Charioteer, so they can take a beating as well. And then if if they manage to charge the Hunter Orcs, you're going to be just removing models.
Like running through gold dust.
Like running through gold dust. That is a good callback.
3 people taking Kingdom of Moria and someone else taking Khazad-dûm. Ashley Walger, are you ready to retract your previous statements?
I mean, we're going to shout out to our friends over at Atomic Cast. Khazad-dûm is officially the worst faction in the game.
Oh no! Thank God.
Watch the 20. The stats don't lie.
It is.
Shout out Tom.
Ashley's the only one waving this flag. But yeah,
it's an absolutely nonsense call. What the thing that the reason why they don't perform particularly well is because they're a really hard faction to play, because you don't have the crutch of spears and things to lean on.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at the mechanics of what they have, you've got some of the strongest troops in the game for their points, and their entire army rerolls 1s to wound. Like, it's actually really good. You just have to play it very carefully.
Ali has manifested himself whilst being asleep.
Look, me and Ali are kindred spirits. What's good for him is good for me.
He literally, basically, in our chat, said that exact thing, that it just is a matter of skill. That they are so difficult. It
definitely is a skill list. That he's done really well with it. I've done okay sometimes with it. Dave Reed up in Scotland.
Dave Reed,
played it for years.
Yeah, he played Sam at the finale. Yeah, we chatted about it.
He's phenomenal with them.
He was going to send us some models, actually. Shout out Dave Reed if you
want. But yeah, for the viewers, this is Sam Grattan's new baby for the 2024 season. So I am prepared to, eat my hat, as it were, if he wins 100 with them. So we'll wait and see.
If it takes a lot of skill, we both know it's not going to happen.
It's done. It's done. It's done. Now I should probably know this, having done all the research and everything for the Race podcast. Go check that out, folks.
Oh, Jesus.
had to be done. But was Arnor, when Jake used it, was that at 600 that he used it at? I can't remember.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest surprise, I think.
That's what just seeing two there. Yeah,
because Arnor at 600 points, I'd back to win the event if the right person was using it. Because it stands up to everything else that you would expect to see. I think the thing that's probably held that back is likely just model availability, if I'm completely honest.
Now, are we going to see that change in the near future with the fall of Arnor supplement potentially on the horizon? Who knows?
It's I don't know, Will, I know you're in contact with Jake quite well, more than us. Why did he take Hunter Orcs last year as opposed to Arnold?
Probably because he's sick of hearing me talk about how good they are.
Okay. He just needed a cheeky win.
They are my love faction. They're what I've used for years. They're probably my most successful faction overall. So anytime the sort of the conversation would talk about what lists are good at whatever points, there'd always be me saying, "Well, Hunter Orcs are never really bad." So I think he likely just got to the point of like, yeah, well, do you know what? Let's give it a go.
Fair enough.
Because the majority of the list, there's some slight variations in how they're built, but generally speaking, it's the 3 baby hunters and then a small alliance of Azog's Legion, which is exactly what I've taken 600 points. And I guess if it worked and won him it last year, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yep. Yeah. So Ash, you were saying that kind of there were some more specific lists that we might end up coming onto, but as there's 9 of us going to this event from the team, spoiler alert, we're just going to be looking at our lists in this preview today. So was there any specific kind of lists here, just looking at the faction, was there any that you wanted to maybe touch on?
Yeah, there was one I did want to mention, just because you can actually, I don't know if you're going to link the Longshanks so that people can, see the results, but all the lists are currently on Longshanks. So as we're sweaty nerds, we've looked through some of the Longshanks lists already. And there was not Survivors, Army of Lake Town list that had 56 models. I think it's with like almost 20 bows, all fight for 12-inch banner, Braga. The knowing that the scenarios are Dom, Recon, Whole Ground, and
Lords.
That's Lords is a bit of an issue, but it's quite a nasty choice, I think. I don't know how you deal with that many models all at fight for with a 12-inch banner and they're going to outshoot you. I think that's quite, interesting.
Do you know who took that list?
I think I want to say it's Stephen Denby, but I don't know if that's right.
It
is Stephen Denby.
But Tom won a 90 with it the other day, didn't he?
I know.
But yeah, I think that's the list I'm scared of. Mr.
Bradford's also taking a Lake Town, but he's allying in some of Thorin's company, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. The cheeky Lake Town Thorin combination.
I think it's Nori Bilbo or something like that.
Okay.
So Stephen Denby moving away from his pride and joy. Fucking hell. What is this 2024 season doing? Shit. But any more comments from anyone about the factions or anything before we move on to our lists? No? Okay. Nope. We're good. So we will move on to Sam Grattan's list, who is not here with us this evening. So for the audio listeners, I will run through it for you. So it is led by, it is a Serpent Horde Corsair Alliance, which is led by Dalamir, who's leading 6 Corsairs with Shield Spear, 6 Arbalistas, and 6 Black Numenorians. A Corsair Captain with Crossbow leading 4 Corsairs with Shield Spear, 4 Arbalistas, and 4 Black Nums. And then he's allied in for the Serpent Horde. Suladan, of course, on his horse, leading 3 Haradrim Warriors with Spear, 1 Raider with Bow and War Spear, and 2 Serpent Riders. So it's 39 models. If you want to see this list on the tabletop, you can go and check out our most recent battle report. where Sam will lose.
There's one long pod of you shouting out other episodes and pods. And Will's Patreon.
With this exact list. So Sam would usually kind of pimp it himself here. But Ashley, seeing as you played the list, do you want to give us a little background? How'd it go?
Yes. unfortunately, Eliott, you are wrong. This isn't the list he used on the
No,
bat rep.
No, it's totally not. You wouldn't let him use Suladan.
Yeah.
it's the list
Regardless,
he's gonna use.
he's taken makes mine axes. Oh,
What?
he was. This is basically an improved version of the list that Sam took.
He wanted to take this, but I thought having double black num front lines with 2 Suladans sat behind was going to be not good watching.
So effectively, he took his strong Corsair list and added Suladan, which, as we know, makes every single list better. It's got a nice Terror front line. If he plays the Hunter Orcs, they're going to be not struggling to charge because there's no Harbinger, but they could potentially fail some courage tests, which is quite nice. It's more about probably the D6 front line, whereas if he just took pure Corsairs, I guess you can have the D6 with the Arbalistas, but then as you get in combat, they become D3. So it's more about survivability. He's going to probably outshoot a majority of lists that he comes up against with the 10, 11 crossbows, including the captain, and then he's also got a Haradrim with bow. So he's actually got 12 bows. Hashtag Eliott always getting the stats wrong. We'll slide that one in there while he's not here, so he can't defend himself.
Yeah, I did tell him earlier that it was 7, might not 8 as well.
I think maybe the thing Sam might struggle with is he doesn't actually have much punch. I guess knowing Sam, Dalamir will be the leader, so then that allows Saladin to go in and do some killing. But he's not too. He's a good punch, but apart from just having a battle line and doing shooting, there's not much else. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in and see what they think.
Can I give my first hot take of the evening?
Let's go, Will.
I actually think this list is worse for having the Black Numenorians and Suladan in it.
Whoa!
So if you obviously Suladan is awesome for his points. We all know that. I don't need to sort of labour that point, and he does make any list that he goes into better, generally speaking. But the best thing about Corsairs is you get a really, really good model for not a huge amount of points. And with the army bonus being backstabbers, you're hugely benefited for having way more models on the table than your opponent to sort of get the traps consistently. At 39 models, I mean, realistically, you've got a battle line that's 10 wide, which is average to slim, really, if you're looking at the model counts.
Yep.
If you come up against like the Hunter Orc list for this, yeah, they'll lose some models to shooting, but all of the Hunter Orcs want to wrap around anyway, and the Black Numenorians aren't going to survive long enough to stop the Hunter Orcs from getting into the back and getting the juicy spears. And I think if you'd have stayed with the Corsairs, you could probably push to near 50 models, maybe even slightly higher. And then you've got backstabbers everywhere, and you've also got all the throwing weapons as well that you're missing out on. Because the army pivots really well into shooting, and then when you do get there to fight, the traps become way easier when you have that many models. So yeah. I think that it's more of a utility build, but I don't think it's necessarily better.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess you really maximize on the army bonus, right? When you have just way more models than your opponent, and you can wrap and just exploit the backstabbers in more places.
Yeah, for sure. And also the throwing weapons are legit. Particularly as an evil army, because if you get like Riders of Theoden, for example, they come in and they're ready to call their death. If you've got throwing weapons everywhere, you just go, cool, I'm going to throw into all the combats, and odds are, especially if you deploy sort of in a staggered thing where they can only really charge one model, and you just shoot some horses out or kill your own guys, and then you just go again.
Yeah.
This sort of, it takes what the Corsairs does, and then it brings it more into like a normal battle line army. But the battle line's actually quite flimsy because the back's really, really weak.
Yeah, the spears. Yeah, and the Hunter Orcs will love when they get around there.
Absolutely.
It doesn't get that strength 4 either. So even though his battle line has the fight 4 and has the terror, it hasn't actually got any killing because it's still strength 3 everywhere.
It might be spooky on the front, but it doesn't actually beat up another battle line.
No.
Well, we have said this to Sam, and he came back and said that he still does have the backstabber ability, and he assumes he'll be able to get, because although he's got a 10 long battle line, the Arbalistas can do the wrapping round, which then allows you to get the traps
Yeah.
So he's hoping that he still will be able to use his backstabber ability whilst being more survivable. That's not a word, is it? Survivable.
I understand. I understand where he's coming from, but essentially his strategy is to try and flank with the weakest models he has on the table.
Yeah.
Some going out here.
Some big brain maneuvers.
It does kind of feel a little bit like it's a jack of all trades, but it's not doing one thing really well, which is kind of what the Corsairs do. Yeah. We'll see how Sam does.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Will. I think I agree. Like, it needs more models, doesn't it? Corsairs, that's the power of the list is all the throwing weapons, getting the traps off. And to do that, you need to maximize the models. I think that's right.
Yeah.
I know I like you, Vince.
Come on, Ben.
Another suggestion, maybe, having not quite done the maths. What does Saladin offer besides his banner? Because the march is already there from the captain, and Dalamir still can do the fighting. So would a Dark Marshal the ringwraith with the banner? Because then he can put the Black Nuns into that warband. He then gets the Harbinger, and then he can fill the spaces in the Corsair warband with more Corsairs.
And it gives him magic.
And it gives him magic, yeah.
I think, the Harbinger with the Black Nuns is just so invaluable, really.
And that's an even better shout, Ben, because there isn't a banner scenario, is there? Day one.
Not day one, no.
Okay.
You could even that's a really good suggestion, Ben. You could even double down on the fact that you've got pretty decent shooting, an ally in like the Shadow Lord, and then because there are a few elf lists floating around, and I know that there's at least one Rangers of Ithilien from memory. And suddenly, if you've got the Shadow Lord as well, you're just like, okay, no matter what happens, you're going to take 2 to 3 turns of crossbows and then at least 1 turn of throwing weapons, and with no return. Yeah. And you know the list does functionally the same, but you've got the magic control element as well. I think you're right. Suladan doesn't. You know, the 6-inch banner is always tasty, but he's not like he hits particularly hard. He's not bringing like a massive X factor that you can't get from elsewhere.
Yeah. Sam's not here to defend himself, but we will see his views on our breakdown of his list, no doubt. So that's gonna do it for Sam's list. Moving on.
He'll never speak to me again.
No, he won't. We have Ali's Army of Dunland list, who's also not here. So for our audio listener, it's an Army of Dunland list led by Thryden on his horse, who's leading 1 warrior with banner, 4 warriors with shield, 2 wild men, 2 horsemen, and 4 Hurskars. Then Warband 2 is led by Gorolf, leading 4 warriors with shield, 1 wild man, another wild man with 2-handed weapon, 1 horseman, 4 Hurskars, and a Cribane. And then he has a chieftain who's got the swap for an axe and shield thing, leading 4 warriors with shield, 1 wild man, another wild man with 2-handed weapon, 1 horseman, 4 Hurskars, 1 Cribane. So 40 models. Army of Dunland. Ali loving his different interesting lists. What do we think of this one? He took a slightly smaller version of this to Into the West, and he did very well.
At least Sam hasn't got the worst list from Gollum's Gamers.
Oh dear.
To be fair, Ali did say that himself.
Yeah,
he actually did it. Called it arse
he
cheeks.
does have 2 Cribane, so that means he's got massive
It's the most
maneuverability.
maneuverable list in the game.
You guys all laughed at me when I said that, and then Jay won Into the West. So, I mean, what can I say?
Jay may have a Cribane in his list. We will find.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one, Chief, for Master Ali.
It's just so flimsy. It's just so flimsy.
Ali is one of the best players of all time. I unfortunately have to admit.
He's on the Gollum's Gamers. Come on, let's
feed his ego even harder.
Me and Ali go way back. He's an excellent player, and I think his player skill will take this list way further than it deserves to go. Because what it essentially is a really crap fight 3 army that gets to hit hard for 1 turn, but will get outfought by basically everything.
Should have just taken Army of Gothmorg. Duh.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we think that Ali qualifies into the top 8?
With the scenarios?
It depends what he plays.
I heard he got some pretty good luck cheese it into the West against Adam Sirens.
He's definitely good enough to top 8. The thing is, I think this gets absolutely rolled over by Hunter Ox.
We've seen there's 12 of them. So
But Ali has incredible luck, and he will just
are the Huskarls Fight 4?
they go up to
They go up
when supporting next to a Dunland hero.
You've got a lot of you got a lot of
one of the worst warrior profiles in the game.
Yeah, it's dreadful.
But it is Fight 4, so he could outfight the Hunter Ox for a little bit.
Yeah, it's just more dice.
Yeah, he's got the 6-inch banner. He could hold it for a small amount of time, but he just gets wrapped and dies.
They're getting diced, probably.
He gets wrapped and dies.
Vince is like, yeah.
The worst thing is if Ali plays Hunter Ox, he has to go towards them because they outshoot him as well. So he then arrives with way less models. Yeah. We could maybe see a turn in Ali's luck, and he plays 3 out of his 4 games against Hunter Ox. Loses all of them.
He'll be booted.
Yeah, Ali, mate, it's not the one.
Would you ever take Army of Dunland, Vince?
Not to a competitive event. I mean, it's such a cool army. I wish it was better, but it just.
There's a reason I sold my Dunland models to Ali.
I was just going to say, yeah. And got rid. He got out early.
Yeah.
I guess the one funny thing that he's got going for him is there's 6 or 7 Riders of Theoden lists, and I still think the Riders of Theoden just piss all over this. There's a chance they could win, and if they whiff, they could die. So he could get really lucky where he only plays Rohan and they always roll bad, and he'll look like the absolute best player in the world.
I can't wait for Ali to play Vince round 1 or round 4.
No, the way it works is
very interesting.
The way it works is you roll 3 high, and then you go, all right, I'll spend all my might. Doesn't matter. You don't give a shit.
I guess I'll just win then. Yeah.
No. Yeah, so I mean, he did well into the West. Ali knows what he's doing, as much as it pains me to admit that. But yeah, we will see how he gets on. So moving on, we will head to Ben Haslam's debut list on the channel.
Let's go, Ben.
Oh, and he has his Army of Thor list. Do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, it's Thor with 15 of the Grimhammers that have been upgraded to make them strength 4, with 3 Warriors of Spear and Shield, then a Captain of Erebor, and then 7 Warriors of Erebor with Spear and Shield, and then a Captain of Erebor, and 8 Warriors of Erebor with Spear and Shield. And it's essentially trying to cram in as many warriors as possible that are all defense 7 and will have the staying power to outlast opponent armies. But there are some serious drawbacks to the army in terms of that. No bows and that slow movement.
No, I mean, no bows. I put a little asterisk there on the side.
Well, there's 15 thrown weapons, but
yeah.
you've got to get your 5-inch models close enough.
36 of them at D7. Yeah.
Yes, and that's
Ben,
the strength.
You walk
of the
towards Hunter Ox, lose like a guy, and then you win the shooting war by throwing weapons at them. Yeah. I think this is a really, really clever pick. I floated it in the chat and everyone said, don't do it, Ash, because you don't know how to play dwarfs, which is definitely true.
Oh, yeah, we did. I forgot.
But I think you could definitely take this to do very well with it, because it's got the tools for all of the scenarios, and it's got the staying power, and it's got the model count. I like it a lot.
I really like this as well. The only thing that upsets me is I think that Thrain is absolutely unbelievably good. And I don't think Thror's the wrong call. And I think if you take Thror and Thrain, you hit your numbers. I'd have been really tempted here. I'd have had to do some real mental maths on how much I liked the Guardians of the King over having Thrain as the named hero instead of Thror, because he is an absolute monster.
It's a filthy idea, Will, but I think the strength 4 kind of edges it a little bit.
Yeah, especially looking at the fact that there's so many people playing Hunter Orcs, it really sort of plays to your strengths there. Having 36 dwarfs is never a bad thing, and you've got 4 marches if you really needed it as well. So I think this is a really good list, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of defense 4, defense 6 around, so the strength 4 becomes useful. And Thraw increases the staying power with his banner, and the fact that you're unlikely to get hero VPs against him because of the Arkenstone, so he's actually very survivable and tanky.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere, is he?
As you're saying, it's just building more into what dwarves are good at.
Yeah, I really like this.
Yeah, and I mean, seeing 4 of them at the event, I think there was 4 Army of Thors.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just you're just really testing your opponent's dice luck here, because if they're strength 3, strength 4, doesn't matter. They've got to roll 6s, and if they don't, you just are gonna win.
I guess the only caveat that I'd put in here is Riders of Theoden will literally walk through this. That's going to be your biggest hurdle, I think.
Rubs
this
his hand at
weekend.
Vince.
Come on, Vince, give us a hand rub, mate. Come on, give us a. Come on.
Yes.
I really like this, Ben. I think it's very solid. It's really good at Dom, hold ground. I think only Recon might be potentially difficult one, but got the 4 marches, don't you? So probably still be fine.
Shouting back to our Lord and Savior, Ali, he's quoted saying, if you outnumber somebody and you have dwarfs, you've already won. And you're almost doing that to a lot of the lists we've seen. So I think you're in a good stead.
Good spot. Army of Thor is really solid. We did have a bit of a debate in the chat. We were like, is this a lemon list? Is it a silly nervous list? Well, we'll be doing a tier list later.
God, blimey.
Where we will reveal all. But that's going to do it for Ben's Army of Thor list. Moving on, we have mine and Adam's Azog's Hunters stroke Azog's Legion list. So I'll run through one of them as the other is very similar. Let's go through my one, which is Jake Rawson's list from last year. Almost. So it is led by Narzug on a Felwarg, leading 10 Hunter Orcs with bow, 1 Hunter Orc with bow and Warhorn, and 1 Felwarg. Then Thimble on a Warg, leading 4 normal Hunter Orcs, another 6 with bow, 1 with a banner, and 1 Felwarg. And then Yazneg on his Warg with a lance, leading 11 Hunter Orcs and 1 Felwarg. And then from Azog's Legion, we have a Goblin Merc captain, leading 2 Goblin Mercs. So it's 42 models, 19 bows, 11 mites. And then Adam's list, the differences here are he's kind of moved around the bows into all of the warbands. So he spread them fairly evenly. And he doesn't have a bow on his Warhorn where I do. But I think other than that, they're the same. So what do we think? Azog's Hunters lemon list, no?
Chef's kiss.
2.
Is
Yeah, and Adam.
I like that I've seen on the Longshanks. Loads of people have just gone exactly the same as Jake's list last year. Copy and paste, boom, done.
Yeah, I wrote Jake's list lol in my
Jake's.
I mean, I sent my list to Will as like a photo of Lonely Night, so I'd have to like type it all in manually. So I thought I'm not doing that. It's Jake's list.
I think, yeah, these are very tasty, high model count, actually outshoot a fair amount of stuff. Yeah, they're pretty gnarly.
19 bows, one of them with a 3-pointer might.
Pew pew.
Another one with might behind it. It's pretty with a Warhorn as well, which is so good. The amount of 7s you roll when you're playing Hunter Orcs. Oh,
I just think
that Warhorn. Oh, so good.
I just think this is we are gonna see a Hunter Orc list podium. And I think that's almost guaranteed.
Surely. One of these 2.
Yeah.
Unless they all play Khand.
The only risk really is that they end up cancelling each other out because there's so many. Because if you end up with an Azog's Hunters mirror match, like you might as well just roll a dice and go for a beer. It'd be so swingy.
I've had a Pits v Pits mirror match before to decide a podium at an event, and yeah, I mean, it's 2 Azogs and a load of Hunter Orcs. Yeah, I'm very swingy. What do we think of the differences between mine and Adam's list, folks? Is my having the guy with the Warhorn with a bow, is that a lemon pick? I think no.
I don't think it makes any difference, mate. I mean, realistically, you're probably not going to be using that bow very much because you're going to be hiding the Warhorn in a situation where you need it. So you're not actually going to get any value of putting it on there.
Yeah, but breakthrough, something like that. He's sat on the back objective holding his Warhorn, but there's a sneaky little bow back there ready.
The only sort of thing that I'd say about these lists, if I had to pick one that I preferred, I've always split the bows between the warbands. Mainly for scenarios like whole ground, it just gives you slightly better coverage for you to pepper. And then in the scenarios where you're deploying, they're just going to go on the front rank anyway, and it just makes it a little bit easier if you've got them sort of mixed between the warbands. But like that's really like picking hairs because the list is basically the same.
It is the
same. Shilling Lord, a list that was wrote for him.
Is that a new verb? Can we apply to the dictionary?
Not new. It's been around for a minute.
What do we think could be the slip-ups for Hunter Orcs, apart from playing each other? Is there one of the scenarios? I'm thinking maybe whole ground is potentially the worst for it.
Whole ground's probably one of their best scenarios.
Depending what you play. Yeah. If it's a run to the middle and you can take minimal casualties, and they have to come to you and then sit there and fight you, that's
I was thinking more that they don't get to shoot you on the way in. They could roll iffy and you gank them because they are
the thing with Hunter Orcs is the bows are essentially just a bit of bait. Because if you've got more bows than your opponent, if you tell anyone that you've got 19 bows, they pay attention. And often, they're still orc bows. Yeah, they hit on 4s because of the army bonus, but they don't actually do a tremendous amount of work. They just give you a little bit of table control. The thing that's good about Hunter Orcs is the fact that you can essentially murder your opponent or die really quickly, and that's how you end the game more often than not. So even in whole ground, because you've got so many fast models, you're almost guaranteed to get to the middle, and then you either slaughter your opponent on the way in or just throw all your boys under the bus and get the game to end.
Yeah, that's valid. I guess
dying is a pro gamer move.
Yeah. I mean, they've 3 fell wargs. You could have a cavalry contingent to take those out in the middle, and then if the Hunter Orcs do die, I can see them. I guess the mercenaries are a little bit annoying, but there's only 3 of them. It just depends. So if hold ground is a good scenario for them, there's Dom. Lords maybe being a bad one as they've got the 42 models and they're a little bit squishy. But
Lords is the riskiest scenario for sure.
Go either way, very quickly, very quickly. Yeah.
But I think even if the Hunter Orcs take 10 casualties in the first turn of combat, that doesn't reduce any of their killing power because they just go in next turn, and if they roll well, they've then murdered the guys that you're playing's front line. So it's kind of like
if you don't have a very good turn that second turn. I think that's what Will's touching on, where it can just go off a cliff, sort of thing.
Yeah, but absolutely. I mean, Lords can be a great scenario. Like if you get a good matchup, if you end up against like Goblin Town or something, then obviously you're laughing. It's free chicken tendies. But if you were to get like one of the Rohan lists, or like Ben's dwarf list, or even the Barlin's Expedition ones, they're just going to plot up, and all you can really do is throw a load of Hunter Orcs at them and hope you win the fights. And if you don't, you're just going to hemorrhage VPs.
Yeah, the D7 as well. Like if you're not
dwarves are the worst.
Even with the dice, any army can fall victim to not rolling enough 6s, even when you outnumber with lots of dice. And Hunter Orcs no different in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why Ben might be onto a winner here, because he's got 36 models as well. Like you're basically never going to be able to get the trap on them. You're not going to be able to get around in any significant numbers. And then even if you do, like as a dwarf, you'll quite happily one-on-one against a Hunter Orc because eventually you'll win.
Even against 2, probably shielding with a banner. Yeah,
exactly.
Pretty good. Yep.
Yeah, Lords is definitely the riskiest scenario for them.
And can you remind us again, Will, the order? Because I think if Lords is it 4 or 3?
Yeah, so if I remember rightly, it's Domination, Whole Ground, Recon, Lords.
So Lords being the riskiest scenario, and you're more than likely playing your best opponent.
Exactly.
There could be the pitfall.
Yeah, but because this Hunter Orc list in the right hands should go 3-0, like pretty comfortably. unless you get one of like the real big counters to them. Like the 3 scenarios before Lords are pretty favourable for the Hunters. But then you come into Lords, and as you said, you're playing against one of the other best players in the room. Your dreams could be shattered pretty quickly with a bad turn or two.
You come up against our man Ben, and he walks towards you, and you're having a really bad time.
100%.
But how you mentioned with the shooting, so in something like Lords, for example, I wonder, obviously 19 bows on paper, like you say, sounds really, really good, but in essence, they don't always do the job of the 18 inches and things. I wonder if there are as many matchups as it might seem at a surface level where you're going to be the person sat there with your opponent coming towards you. Obviously, if they've got no bows, then of course, but I think more things outshoot it than people might think.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 19 bows are just sort of there as a bit of a threat. Because if you're like elves or dwarves or anything with a good enough defense and a third bows, like 10 bows or more,
yeah,
if you're the Hunter Rock player, you've got to know that you don't want that shoot off.
Going towards them.
Even with Sam's list with the 11 crossbows, no way on earth are you going to try and have a shoot off against that.
So you've got the march, you're taking, maybe 2 turns of shooting. And if that goes badly, something like Lords, then you're really on the back foot quite early.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. That's going to do it for our 2 Hunter Orc lists, mine and Adam's. Moving on, James, we have your Minas Tirith list. Take us through, my guy. Come on.
Ooh, trying something different. Yeah, so my leader, we've got Denethor, the Steward of Gondor. And then in his warband, we've got 5 warriors with shield, 2 with spear and shield, 1 with a banner, spear, shield, 1 knight with a shield, and 5 rangers with spear. Second warband, we have Faramir on a horse with a lance, heavy armor, and shield. He has 3 warriors with shield, 3 with spear, shield, 1 with a banner, spear, and shield, another knight with shield, 5 rangers of Gondor, and 1 fountain court. Then final warband, I feel like I had to include him because of all the scenarios. Madril, 5 warriors with shield, 2 with spear, shield, 1 with a knight and a shield, and 3 rangers with spear. So we get a good number of bows, 14 including Madril. So hopefully we can outshoot those pesky Hunter Orcs with their 18 inches. Got the double banner to utilize the dice against things like Hunter Orcs, so you can get that fight 4 involved and keep the line roughly steady. Yeah.
Love this from you, James. Nervous pick. Faramir, captain of Gondor.
Yeah. I'm feeling nice for you, James. This is
nice.
Is this the anti-Hunter Orc list that we've all been talking about? Ooh.
No.
I had a better anti-Hunter Orc list that I was going to take, but I was persuaded not to. So.
But
I mean, I wouldn't put it past you to beat Hunter Orcs to this list.
Oh no, I feel like I could give them a pretty good run for their money.
Yeah.
I'm more scared of things like Army of Lake Town.
I think you could definitely give them a run for the money. I wouldn't call it an anti-Hunter Orc list.
No, it wasn't designed in that fashion.
I think the main trouble that you would come across with this is obviously you've only got 6 might, which is quite low for 600, particularly against Hunter Orcs when you've got 11. The main thing about this is, and it's a problem that Minas Tirith has, is Rangers of Gondor are really, really good, but it falls into that category of list where your spear supports are way worse defensively than your front line. And so as soon as you take a couple of casualties on the front, the back will absolutely fold. But you've got your shield
for the double banner to try and save that.
Yeah, 100%. and you've got your shield wall as well. So if you can like hold the line and keep it intact, and keep that defense 7, then you'll probably do all right. I quite like this list. The only thing that scares me is the low might count. But I've always been a bit of a might whore in my lists.
I'm normally the opposite, so
true with his lists. Yeah.
There's almost no way if you're trying to structure a list like what James has made. You need Denethor for the spam models. There's kind of no other way to get the might in. So yeah, the 6 might is a little bit lackluster. But yeah, I don't think there's any other way to do it. You're kind of just relying on
all the warbands are nearly full as well, so it's not even like, because there's some really good midpoint heroes. Like I think Ingold is one of the most underrated models in the game, but you downgrade Faramir to Ingold, your warbands are nearly full anyway, so you don't really get much of an improvement.
I mean, well,
I think
you could totally drop Denethor to someone like Ingold, for example, and then because he's only got 14 models and there's 2 extra spaces in Faramir's.
Yeah, that's true.
One in each, but then your leader's Faramir. So, and obviously the point is that Faramir can do some damage in this list, but it gets you up to 9. With the same amount of models. Yeah.
I think what Ingold would do for this list is, because you've got that squishy backline and you've got your shield wall on the front, Ingold all but guarantees that you get to maintain your defense 7.
Yeah.
That was my biggest reason for thinking about taking Ingold, just to maintain the D7.
Yeah.
And maybe if it was 650 or something, maybe you'd have converted.
Yeah.
I think you've probably made the right decision with Denethor to get the model count up. It's just the might count that really scares me. But every player plays differently, don't they? You've got like a pretty strong Horde list, and 14 bows is nothing to sniff at.
No.
I mean, Faramir's got to be one of the worst heroes in the game, though, surely.
You're grossly underrating Faramir, if that's what you think.
Let's go, Vince.
Come on.
Surely now. I mean, he's 2 attacks and what is he, 110 points?
He's 105 with a lance on a horse. D7. Pretty solid.
Come on, James. Let him know.
Vince, just because he's not a mega Rohan Dernhelm hero.
Come at me. This is just, I don't know. It's just a poor man's Arnold list, isn't it? Really, this is the problem.
No,
that's fighting talk, guys.
I'm not sure you're understanding it if you're seeing it as an Arnold list.
No, I'm understanding it pretty well. It's just a load of D6 guys, which Arnold does too, but better, right? Sure.
But Arnold's got no versatility to it. It's got no cav. It's got nothing else. It's simply just we stand together and that's it.
Yeah.
We stand together.
And it's pretty effective.
It can
I don't know. I mean, the points, we've already been mentioned about the low might, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the 3 cav are very useful. It definitely.
Faramir as well. Yep.
Faramir, you've got having mounted heroes is fantastic. It gives you that killing power that Arnold doesn't necessarily have.
When you face someone like Ben, you're like, how am I going to get through these dwarves? Faramir can help massively with something like that.
Yeah, and so can the knights. I mean,
yeah.
Granted, they are only fight 3 in this one, but they still have that sort of glass cannony punch to them.
Recon, you can catapult off some knights with Faramir, for example.
I think, as we know, James is going to go 3-0. He's then going to play a Hunter Orc list in Lords, and then he's going to also be rubbing his hands, because I think this would probably beat Hunter Orcs at Lords.
I think depending how the shooting goes, I was saying. So I've played against Farmer at War last year with a Minas Tirith list that he had, which was sort of similar to this, but at 550, and it was to the death. So he had numerous turns of shooting, and I arrived at him with not many Hunter Orcs left. So depending how the shooting war goes, he had Huron as well, though, which was then obviously really good at killing them on 3s, which Faramir is as well. But Huron's less points. But I think if the shooting goes well for the Rangers, it looks pretty tough for the Hunter Orcs. But
I think Faramir is a better pick than Huron. I'll give you that.
The thing I like about
how do you feel about that statement?
The thing I like about Huron is that he has +1 without charge.
No.
I really like.
I think Huron's hugely overrated. So I'm more of a Huron's bad than Faramir's good. Because Huron for 90 points can die to Hunter Orc. He can die to literally any model with a spear support. Whereas at least with Faramir, you get your defense 7, which is huge, but you've also got 2 wounds, 2 fate, which means you actually are quite tanky.
Extra
and
fate.
2 will.
Yeah.
Against
and
that
the
pesky magic.
And the extra will. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to see the James versus Vince grudge match.
God, you're going down, Vince.
Hey, I'm not sure.
I want this to be the Goble. That's why I'm disappointed.
That is true. You have supported the
Vince has probably been your biggest advocate for
exactly.
the Goble year.
And then you betrayed him with Faramir.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Better than the Woses, though.
The Woses were great, weren't they?
Yeah, Will was the start of the downfall of the Woses, though. So.
Oh no.
James, what happened to the unlosable scenario against Will. What was that about?
Yeah, the brain was overthinking.
I won't
I got
tell you
flustered
what
by his looks. So I just panicked.
I won't tell you what James said to me the night before, but he made some bets that he very
Wild,
nearly had to pay for.
James's jaw was sore. That's what mattered.
He arrived, yeah. We can go into that any further. Okay, moving on. We will have a look at Jay's Isengard list. Now, I will let us know at the very top of this that this is not the exact list he's going to be using, Will. He will be getting in touch with you because this list is short on points by 8 points.
Wow.
Jay is always writing his lists late at night, not using an army builder. He's using his notepad.
What a renegade.
Yeah, and I put it into Lonely Night, and he's 8 points under. And I'm like, Jay, and this is the first time this has happened with Jay. But this is roughly what he's going to be using. So it is led by Lurtz with the shield, leading 6 Uruks with crossbow, 8 with pike, and 1 Crabane. Vrasku leading 4 Uruks with crossbow and 6 with pike, and then Gorolf leading 2 with crossbow, 6 with pike. 1 with a shield and 1 random orc warrior, which he chucked in there for points reasons. So I assume he'll take that away. He could get up to 40 models if he wants to take some orcs, but there'll be some shifting around somewhere. So it's 38 models, 14 crossbows, as Jay's sort of known for at this point, just spam crossbows. No ballistas though, which obviously he's done very well with recently into the West. What do we think?
This is the anti-Hunter Orc list.
I was waiting.
Having played against Isengard many times with Hunter Orcs, I hate playing Isengard. Every time I play them, it never goes well. Even if I'm on the brink of winning, the fight 4 with the strength 4 just can really turn at any moment. And Isengard are traditionally quite a terrible matchup, I think, for them.
Yeah, particularly in a build like this, there's literally not a wasted point across the stat line because there's no shields or anything. Defense 5 is good enough, as we know. I don't really like Lurtz for 90 points. I think I'd have gone for Vrasku. There's a list that I'd sort of played with at 600 points, which is essentially the orc crossbow, to get as many crossbows in as you can.
The
and that
David
gets to like,
Clubley into the West.
that gets to like 45 models. But heroes aside, like it's absolutely rock solid. I'd back this to top 8.
Yeah,
Not like Let's for the different scenario choices.
Yeah, obviously he's good for whole ground, but there's nothing in Lurtz's warband that's really going to sort of leverage an advantage. I really like Lurtz with a demo team. That's hilarious in the Maelstrom scenarios, and you don't really see that very often. But
Hello.
He's just another hero at like the 90-point mark that's not particularly survivable. And I think that you could drop him down to the likes of Ugluk or someone else that still brings the 3 might and a strike with them, but gets you a few more Urkai in there.
Yeah, up to the 40 model range.
Yeah.
Will, do you agree if Lurtz could take a Fell Beast, then he'd be pretty good?
I mean, just make the fucker defense 7. It's not hard, is it?
No, but a Fell Beast though.
Come on.
It would be cool. It would be cool. I'd like to see that conversion.
Vince, get it done, my guy.
I like this list from Jay. The crossbows are disgusting. He's got 14 crossbows, but actually 16 crossbow shots. So that's this probably outshoots almost anything.
Eliott's already added in the crossbow shots.
Don't you worry, Ash.
It is 14.
I've got you, my guy.
I'm totally being dense.
I know what I'm doing.
I'm being dense here.
He hasn't got Lurtz bow though.
I definitely do.
He hasn't got Lurtz's bow. Yes,
Oh.
I definitely do. There's
Rasku gets 2 shots.
There's 12
should be 15, mate.
2 from Rasku and 1 from Lurtz, 15.
But it's
Yes,
one
stupid
crossbow,
head
though. I mean, Vrasku gets 2 shots, but it's one crossbow. I'll let you have it, Ben. It's your first pub. I'll let you have it. I'll continue.
I have a message from Jay saying that he's done 14 and then he said, actually, it's 15.
Fuck Jay.
Even against sort of Ben, your list, the 3 Fight 5 heroes at strength 5 can also kill the dwarfs, which is quite tasty. So I think he's got the ability to beat every army up and shoot it to death. And then when you get into combat with him, he's got the abilities, like with Lurtz, he's got the strike, Gorolf, he's got the defense. He can stop the opponent's heroes as well, which is quite nice. And as we said, the Uruks are just tasty all round. So
yeah, with the pikes as well, getting to sort of build a bit of a train behind your heroes, but also just in the line fight, getting the 3 attacks when you need it. The only criticism for this is that there's no banner, is there?
There isn't,
which I think is a bad call.
Luckily, he has 8 points, so
he can get it done.
he can take a third of a banner.
36 models with a banner.
Yeah, I think you want to maximize the fight 4 here, don't you? You definitely want to take a banner.
I've always been of the opinion that if your army list can take a banner, you should always take a banner, basically at any points level.
Yeah.
It gets harder at like 450 because you have to make concessions, but I don't think that's really a good points level for the game. If you can take a banner, you should always take a banner.
Facts. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, I do.
Any final comments on Jay's Isaac list before we move on? It's a similar sort of thing to what we've seen him do very well with over the 2023 season in recent memory. So I'm sure he'll do very, very well.
2024 season.
Hopefully, and it's 2024. Yeah, fingers crossed. Moving on. Vince, talk to me. Riders of Theoden.
Yeah, so it's basically right into the West list, but gambling added on with some Royal Guard. So it's Theoden, Gambling, Dernhelm, Daewine, a captain, and 10 Royal Guard, all with throwing spears.
But no throwing spears on the heroes, though. I know.
No.
Yeah, one of the ones that can.
So the only thing really to say about this is I really like the captain over Elfhelm, purely because he can get to fight 5 and he's D7, and he's 10 points less. I think
Elfhelm
he's
sucks, bro.
really good.
Elfhelm sucks.
Yeah. I know. The fight 4 is just not good enough. You need to hit that fight 5. And this is why this list does so well at 600 points and below, because you're not like, it's just fight 5 is enough. You're not too worried about too many big heroes just floating around. And fight 5 is just really, really kind of the sweet spot. You're going to be facing a lot of fight 3, fight 4 hordes, and it just munches.
Yeah, the biggest thing that dents Riders of Theoden is Host of the Dragon Emperor, and you don't see a lot of that at 600 points, which is another reason why I think Riders thrives. The only thing I'd say about this list is I think you've gone too heavy on the Rohan Royal Guard, and I'd have a second captain in there. That's the list that I used to run at 600. Yeah.
I was actually going to say hold ground, only having the 16 models. Is there the potential that the game ends first turn and you don't have as many models in the middle? Is that the only slip up I can see? Having such a low model count, suffering on that objective scenario, potentially.
The thing
I
is,
think for that one, you just come on and you kind of aim to kill everything before they get to the middle, and then you just throw your horse into the middle.
Yeah,
your army is so fast that there's no way that you can. Because the thing is, you come on turn 1, so you're 10 inches on the board, and then within by turn 2 you're already knocking on the objective, even if it's just with 1 or 2 Royal Guard to begin with, while your heroes just go and do what they need to do and absolutely wreck face.
This is a horrendously terrifying list.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's one of the best lists at 600, I think, which is why we've seen a spike of it in the charts as well. Because you can afford to go really hero heavy without being too worried about everybody else's model count. Even with the one captain, if you get to charge into a line, you do have a likelihood of breaking them on the first turn of combat, which is where Riders needs to be.
Yeah. Vince, I do just want to fact check you on something that you said earlier. Is your captain be D7 in this list?
What, the captain?
D5, right?
No, the captain's got heavy armor and a shield, which you haven't added on the.
I'm sure it came to 600. I doubt that.
No.
I'm mistaken.
Surely not.
Maybe I'm mistaken, but I swear it came to 600 anyway. Maybe I'm tripping. I'm sure you've
I
done
also
I think
don't. I also don't bother with the throwing spears. I think they're wasted points, but the jury's out on that one.
Really? On the Royal
Yeah,
Guard?
they just don't do anything, do they? I think 600 is quite an awkward points level where you can't quite afford another model, at which point you might as well take them. But I'd take the captains just with shield, because defense 6 is fine if you never lose the fight, and it stops you getting.
So is defense 5 then.
Yeah.
Good point.
Also true. But the points you save on 2 sets of heavy armor and those throwing spears is normally an extra royal guard, which is normally where I go.
I think
Right. Interesting. But you think that there's like too many Royal Guard in this list? You think you want an extra captain?
I would take an extra captain, yeah.
Yeah, I see the argument for that. It's just because of domination as well. It's just nice to have a few more, like kind of just in reserve, I guess, for the pack objectives.
I'm certainly not saying that this list is worse. I'm just sort of going off what I've played. Because the thing is, I only ever really took as many Royal Guard as I had heroes, largely just to get in the way of shooting and then sit on the objectives. If you've got domination, obviously you lose 2 to your back, and then in the list that I take, you've still got 4 to go forward with. And you are relying on your heroes to sort of turn up and do the work they need to do, but the list needs them to do that anyway. And having that extra captain that gets to go in and be fight 5 and strength 6 on the charge if you're piercing strikes, you know, it's just another force multiplier, especially with death. You just kind of want as many heroes as you like. You haven't fallen into the trap of taking Aemir though, so I approve of that because he's definitely a waste of points.
Yeah, definitely.
Ben, with your dwarves, how are you feeling about this? Fight 5, strength 5?
It depends how I set up to receive the counter charge, and then I think the next heroic move off would be crucial. Because if you win the first one after death, then you can swamp and gank. But you've kind of got one shot, really, because if it keeps going and you keep losing the roll-offs for the move, then you can just get flawed.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, it applies to kind of all other lists, isn't it, really? Yeah.
Okay, that's going to do it for Vince's Riders of Theoden. Moving on, finally, we've left the most boring list.
Yes!
Ashley, we have...
Always get left till last. What's this about, huh? Saving the best till last. That makes sense.
Actually, hold on. First of all, so run us through your list, first of all.
So, we are taking the very innovative Witch King Sully combination. And ladies and gentlemen, this is because it will get nerfed in the upcoming February FAQ. So I need one last hurrah to fulfill.
A little tease in here. He has actually changed something about his Witch King Soledad list that I've never seen him do before. If that's not a tease, I don't know what is.
I needed to use it one last time before it gets absolutely annihilated in the upcoming FAQ. I'm not sure it actually will, but that's my excuse. So we have the Witch King of Angmar with a crown of Morgul and a horse. We have 4 orc trackers, 7 Morannon orcs with shield spear, 7 black Numenorians. We've got one of my favorite heroes, the Gorbinator, with a shield. 4 orc trackers, 4 Morannon orcs with shield spear, 4 black nums, and then the old favorite, which is Suladan, the Serpent Lord with armored horse. And then I've actually got 3 Haradrim with bow 3 Haradrim warriors with bow, and then 2 Serpent Riders this time.
So
what do you think?
The change that I was going to say, which you didn't mention, which you usually do, as a way to slag off Lonely Night Builder.
Yeah.
It doesn't show the Might, Will, and Fate for your Witch King, and you have gone to 12 Will, which I've never seen you do before.
I have,
Fate on your Witch King, which you've also never done before.
I have. Well, the viewers wouldn't be able to know that because Lonely Night doesn't show it. which is again one of the reasons why it is totally trash.
So, Will and Ben, as your first time on our podcast, do either of you use Lonely Night? Do you have an opinion on Lonely Night? I feel this is crucial to the podcast to learn your views.
I'm a pen and paper person.
Yes.
I love Lonely Night. I think it's brill. Obviously, the fact that it doesn't show the Witch King's points is kind of nonsense.
It's a shame.
What I would say though is the new Tabletop Admiral app is by far the best app that's ever been made for SPG. And I certainly use that now for my list building.
Woo! Tabletop Admiral.
Yeah, I've started
you not
using
even
that
heard
since you
of it?
told me Into the West.
That is that's insider knowledge here on the Gollum's Games.
Okay, so this is absolute secret tech, and this can be a Gollum's Gamers exclusive. If you Google Tabletop Admiral MESBG, some wonderful stranger on the internet has essentially made the entire build for SPG, so you can use it on your phone or on your computer. It's just a web link, and it is just the most intuitive builder that there is out there. It knows all of the ally matrices. It knows who has to be leaders if they need to be leaders. It knows if it's a legendary legion. It's got all the stats on there, and it also has the sort of the final format to show your list. It has it in a text version or like a pretty share version that you can just save as an image, so you don't have to waste time screenshotting and all of that stuff. Whoever put the time into making it needs a medal because it's actually spot on. Would highly recommend.
That top tip isn't worth a sub to the Gollum's Gamers channel. Come on. I had to ask the question. Anyway, so Ashley, yes, Witch King Suladan, Gorbag is trash, no?
No, Gorbag is a little legend, and the 3 attacks charging into 2 models going to fight 5 is a glorious special rule for only the 60 points that he is. Bring in the 3 might, bring in the strike. So I've got 9 points of might in here, triple strikers. I've actually got 11 bows, which is not unsubstantial. So yeah, I think it's not the best points limit for Witch King Sully. I'd much rather boost it up to 650 and get the Mouth of Sauron so you get the double caster in. But I didn't have too much fun with pure Serpent Horde. I'm not really a fan of shooting lists in general, just the way they play. I think they're a little bit static, whereas, and this gives you more control, more ability to go forward. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a good list. It's tried and tested. It's been used very successfully by yourself and a couple of other people. I would say I don't think it's going to get nerfed into the ground, though.
I was playing up then. I don't think it is.
No,
either.
but it's definitely one of the most talked about lists at the moment, isn't it? Because people sort of talk about it being a little bit on the oppressive side.
Yeah.
Honestly, the profile combination has existed in like this entire edition, and Suladan is definitely undercosted for what he does, but he's not as egregious as the likes of the Dragon Emperor. I'd be very surprised if he got any sort of nerf, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
I'm in the same boat. Potentially the Witch King, but I don't see them really touching the profile, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think the Witch King's busted as hell, but I certainly don't think that they'll change it. I think the biggest error that was made with the Witch King was the fact that you can scale him for points, and I just don't think you should be able to do that. I think there should be 2 profiles, and there should be the Black Riders version that's kind of the 1 attack and does his stuff, and then there should be the big maxed out one that's 323 with all of his stuff that costs 200 points or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's the scalability that makes it painful, and that's probably what annoys people, because what you've essentially done is you've got a model that's got incredible abilities and you can take it at any points level you want, and that's the bit that gets a bit sticky.
Yeah, we floated around the idea of potentially having to choose between, say, having your re-roll or the 3 attacks with the crown. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, if you want to run it either way, it still allows you to scale it to points. That can be a unique thing that the ring race have, but then you have to pick what sort of Witch King you want for your particular list, which I think makes it far less OP, right? Like, but you can still run it really well at lots of different, in lots of different types of lists.
I actually haven't thought about that suggestion, Will, before, and I am totally on board with it because it makes sense from a themey point of view, which Games Workshop like to obviously incorporate. And they are 2 different almost characters in the books and the films, because as you know, he gains power throughout the film to become his sort of final ultimate form almost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you literally see him getting suited up in the films. Like that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
He's gearing up for the epic takeover of Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that you can take the crown and stuff in the Angmar just like really fills me with anger. It's just absolute nonsense.
Massively irks you.
Yeah, but it's the scalability, isn't it? Because you can literally run him at any points level, and he will be good for his points, and that's obviously a bit of a problem.
Is there a potential the Angmar Legendary Legion in a potential new supplement, and then see even more Witch Kings in our GBHL 100 previews? Is that even possible?
What if in the Angmar supplement you get a Witch King and you get to take the crown for free?
His workshop just doubles down.
That's the Legendary Legion bonus.
That'd be pretty banter. But yeah, the list itself is rock solid, isn't it? I think Gorbag's obviously great for his points. I think you made the right call there. I like the 600 point list that has Shagrat in, but you lose a lot of models to take that. I think you've hit the nail on the head here, and I think it's rock solid, mate. This is definitely a top 8er for sure.
Woo! See, I actually think it could come unstuck. When I've been looking at the lists throughout the pod, I think Vince takes a poo on my head. I think the Hunter Orcs probably poo on my head. I'm not necessarily upset by Ben's list. I think that would be a good game, but I do think there could be some matchups.
Yeah, I mean, the Hunter Orcs can beat you in scenarios, but I think that you do beat them in the fight. If you get to sort of anchor against some terrain and hold your line, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah.
The Witch King is just your central piece, isn't he? If he can eliminate the important threats, like particularly in the Riders of Theoden's list, if Theoden's kind of stuck dribbling at the back, the other heroes can go in and blow all of their might for their combats and stuff. But then if you do win the roll off and sort of get to jump on them before they can reform, it could be a real issue. The biggest struggle that this list has is sort of winning the scenarios, and I don't think it's bad at any of them. That's when the matchups come in,
and that's why I keep coming back to this list, because it has a chance in every scenario, and it's about how you as a player can exploit those situations, because it's got all the tools to do so. You don't almost never do you come up against a list and think, oh, I've got absolutely no chance here,
Yeah, and that's one of the most important things in sort of being a competitive player. It's just making sure that your list is like a pretty solid all-rounder and you're not leaving anything to chance.
Yeah.
Then you've got the X factor in the Witch King there for those situations where you've got to pull something out the bag,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
We'll be relying on the 1 dice Ashley Walker 6s with only the 12 will, but I think 12 will's enough.
When you've got the re-roll, 12 will is fine.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay. That's going to do it for Ash's Witch King Slowdown list. So we have come to the end of all of our lists, and we are going to move into the classic tier list. Now, Ashley Walker is coming in at the bottom of this week's tier list.
What's this about?
I was just trying to think of. I couldn't really think of what to put at the bottom, to be honest.
This is his second time at the bottom.
What I found quite funny was that when I typed A, it pre-filled Ashley Walker, and I
thought Adam's one was quite funny.
Yeah,
about Troy
I thought it was going to be Troy Deeney. Yeah,
being Forest Green manager for like 27 days
the other day. It was only because you had the most success in the team as a whole last year, but you've gone 0-2 in your debut on the channel in the bat reps. And
that's true.
Well, that wasn't up to your standard, and
it's actually a lot harder to game and try and do a bat rep than I first thought. So
I got a lot of shit before they gave it a go, but then they gave it a go. Realized, but for the audio listener, so for our tier list, so if you are the best list, the category that you want to be in is our lemon category. Then descending down from there, we have silly, nervous, dog, and then this week, Ashley Walker. So we are going to begin with James Goebel's Minas Tirith list. Where do we see this one landing?
This James is in the nervous tier.
Is it a nervous list?
I'm fine with that. It's just a solid standard list.
It's solid Minas Tirith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will, Ben, thoughts? Happy there?
Yeah, I think it's a complete middle of the road list, isn't it? And if you play it well, it'll take you far, and if you get unlucky, it'll drop you out. It's straight down the middle, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Standard tin cans, yeah.
Most definitely see it going 4-3. Whether or not those games match up to, you know, your overall standing. But that's kind of if you play well, you'll do better than 4-3. But that's kind of where I expect.
Yeah. James to finish. Okay. Moving on, we have mine and Adam's 2 Hunter Orc lists.
Lemon,
Guys.
Yes.
And Adam's list is definitely better than yours, Eliott, because he is the pilot.
He's wearing a shirt, so I'll let you have that. Yeah, they're lemon. Pretty expected there, I think. Okay, moving on. We have Ben Haslam's Army of Thrall list.
Ooh. I would put this in the silly nervous
I
category.
think it's a silly nervous list. Now, Vince, weren't you advocating for this being a lemon list?
Yeah, I believe it belongs in lemon. I really like it.
Lemon Army of Thrall.
What say ye, Ben? Where are you putting it?
I don't think it's a lemon list because
Back yourself, mate.
despite
Come
doing
on.
it,
Back yourself.
because
Back yourself.
just like what you're saying with the Witch King and Saladin list, instead of it doesn't have lots of control over the board. There are certain weaknesses to that army, so it can't go in the top tier because there are some quite big weaknesses there to be exploited. But it's just got to play it well, hopefully.
Yeah, I think the main thing that keeps it out of lemon is just the fact that there's so much Riders of Theoden coming. And if they get the turn that they need, there's not a lot you can do about it. So I think silly nervous is fair. It's a list that could definitely top 8. I'd certainly expect to see it in the second pod at worst.
But Riders of Theoden poo over Hunter Orcs as well, so why
they do. The only thing that you can bank on with the Hunter Orcs is dying can be a good thing. So in some of those scenarios, they can be where they need to be for you to destroy them. And what Rohan doesn't really have is the ability to slow that down.
Because they poo.
No, I know I can dismount and shield. Okay? This is Brandon plays it.
I'm sure, Vince, that will work out great for you.
Dismount and shield.
I love the movement as well. I'm going to stand there.
Yeah.
Dismount, shield.
Now, will you be allowing any heroic holds if they are called at this event?
Any what?
Vince is like, what?
Is this some sort of young person joke? I don't understand.
Come on, Vince, give him the rundown of a heroic.
No, it's that Christmas wish list episode where we came up with like ideas to make the game better. And one of my ideas was introducing a new heroic action called heroic hold.
Oh, where you move second.
Exactly.
He had heard about this somewhere. He knows. He just needed the dots to be,
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that I think should exist in the game. But no, I'll not be allowing it, obviously.
Vince is like, shit, my plan.
I do think Ben hit the nail on the head talking about his list. It's just that slight lack of control. He's got all the D7, but his maneuverability isn't necessarily great, even though he's got the 4 points of march.
But yeah.
It's very much, no bows either. It's just kind of, it does one thing, not die and grind.
It does it really well. Yeah.
It does do it really well, but it hasn't got the overall ability. Like if you need to move a cav 10 inches to get on the objective, you're kind of screwed, that sort of thing.
Yeah, in certain areas. So silly nervous looks like it's a regular list. Moving on, we have Sam's Corsair.
Let's put him down in dog.
Is it our first list? Nervous list. Where do we fall?
It's a dog for me, I'm afraid.
I've been totally persuaded by the champ. And I want to put Sam's little face. Let's put him next to me, actually. Let's put him in the Ashley Walker category.
No, it's definitely not that bad. It's still got play for sure, but I don't think it's the best list that it could be.
Sam is going to be outraged with a dog. Is this Sam's
He's going to be really upset by
that. Potentially in the history of our channel. Other people's votes. Do we think dog? Is that where he's landing? Vince, James?
Dog.
I don't think it's dog. It's probably nervous. I think it's above the Ministerial.
I want to see it in dog.
I think it's nervous as well. So James is going dog. That's 3 for dog. Ben,
Ben has the final vote. Otherwise, we get out.
I think a nervous but below Minas Tirith.
Okay,
Yes, Ben.
I feel that's a fair go bottom of nervous. There were 3 for dog, but I voted above nervous. Above James in nervous, which is where Vince is, but Ben thinks below.
So it's got to be below then.
Got to be below if there was half for dog.
So what, in dog or below James?
No, Eliott, your brain should put it below.
It is late.
Below
To be
James
fair.
in nervous. Yeah. Okay. Moving on, Jay's Isengard list.
Now this is pushing it. I think this is better than your list, Ben.
I
But
think
I'm
it's better
not-
than my list, but which side
Which
of the line?
bracket it goes into? Yeah.
I don't know, but I think it's a very strong list, and it does what Jay does very well as well. The two list and the player goes
I
well.
think we consistently rank Jay lower than he finishes, so I think we should maintain that strategy because then it won't, ruin his chances. So
Maybe
I think
if he feels he has a lemon list, he then won't come into it swinging as hard as he usually does, and he won't do as well.
exactly.
Maybe keep that. I do
the
agree
other-
as well with Will generally that I'm not the biggest Lurtz fan overall. Until he gets a Fell Beast in his profile, I'm just not sold.
He's also very good for the 4 scenarios on day 1 with that list. If
Yeah,
you think
it is. I think it is the right
his
choice.
weakest one is domination, isn't it? Probably out of the 4, and it gets stronger and stronger as he goes through that day. Does that
And
list?
yeah, Ben, that's a good point because he's playing Dom round. I think Dom's the first scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
It is, yeah.
he'll be playing potentially somebody who hasn't played much, and Jay won't necessarily need his shooting. Whereas if it was game 4, yes, it would be more difficult.
Agreed. So are we going to put him top of silly nervous to keep him where,
Yeah, I think it's barely not lemon.
Yeah,
just on the okay.
on the cusp.
On the cusp. Okay, moving on. Vince's Riders of Théoden.
I think this is probably worse than Ben's, but still in the silly nervous category.
Right
think
around Ben's list. Yes, whether it's higher or
We
lower.
say it's swingy, and then I know Vince is going to come back and say, but I've got 14 might, so it doesn't matter. And I don't necessarily have a comeback to that.
Yeah, but you need that 50-50, which is 1 might to go in your favour
Yeah.
against
Not
Vince's.
always though. You've got the march to fight where you want. That is the real power of the list. Actually, it's not the charge; it's where you fight.
Yeah, but you can then surround it, and then you can then start shielding up against it, whilst you then lengthen the game out to get to where you need to go as a slower player.
Riders of Théoden should lose a game in a tournament. Just because you're bound to get unlucky at least once where you lose 2 roll-offs on the trot. Because generally speaking, you can survive losing 1, but you can't survive losing 2. And generally, like Riders of Théoden is a classic 5-1 list in a standard tournament. You've got the mitigation in this one that you've got veto day 2, which sort of helps flatten the curve a little bit. But I think you'd have to be on a real good streak to go 7-0 with Riders of Théoden. So I think it's top of silly nervous for me. I think it's as good as Jay's list, but it's too unreliable to be a lemon. I think.
Yeah.
Between mine and Jay's.
Yeah, I think on its best day, it's probably better than Ben's.
Yeah, it's between mine and Jay's, I think.
See, I think on its best day, it's actually better than Jay's because I think Jay's does rely quite heavily.
Yeah,
It's got the
shooting.
highest ceiling, hasn't it? Because it can achieve like absolute decimation, but it can also it's also less reliable than Ben's list because it can also go catastrophically wrong. And Ben's list can't really go catastrophically wrong.
No.
It
So
just
it's
can't.
balance
It
out.
just can't pull some magic out the bag.
Yeah. So the general consensus seems to be above. Above. Yeah. We seem good there. Okay.
Well, I'll take it. It was in dog before, so it's a big upgrade.
You're working out, Vince.
We really sold you down the river on that one.
Single-handedly. Okay, moving on. Ash's Witch King Sully list.
Silly nervous.
Witch King Sully at the end of the day. Gorbag's really, really good. It's not what Ash has traditionally done that well with last year.
It lacks the double caster.
He prefers taking the mouth at 650 and then Shagrat at higher points.
I just think Gorbag is really good for his points, though. I've got the high model count.
It's quite a squishy section, though, doesn't it, with the Harrod and the trackers?
And 38 isn't that high. Like if you were at 40, 42, like the Hunterhawks and things, sort of you're on the higher end, but 38's okay. But yeah, you do have a contingent of that, which is very low defense. Sully's
one of the problems you'll face going, because the thing is, we know what the field is as well. It's not just the lists in isolation. This is one of the few lists that the Hunterhawks absolutely will take a punt and try and outshoot.
Yeah.
And they only have to kill a handful of the Black Numenorians, and you're in like real trouble.
That is my fear.
Because the Hunterhawks hate the Black Numenorians.
They do. I think it's definitely a silly, nervous list. I'm not too sure where it would go in that ranking.
Yeah.
Probably just above Ben's, just because of the versatility that it has. But I think looking at the field, it's not necessarily better than Jay's or Vince's.
No. That is my biggest fear, is that I get shot and then lose 2 or 3 Black Nums to the sort of 19 Hunterhawk bows, and then it does become a little bit iffy.
I would probably put it above Riders of Theoden, I think, for the consistency factor, personally, and obviously Ash's ability to use the list as well.
I think I would also put it above Vince, but again, I don't necessarily get a vote.
So Will thinks below, me and Ash above. Others?
Below.
Yeah. It's 2-2. Ben?
Probably below, just because of what he's facing. There's not lots of big heroes to shut down with the field as well.
Yep.
And Vince is going to back himself to beat Ash. So okay, is that the worst rating we've seen for a Witch King Solo list on our podcast? Potentially,
yeah.
Yeah.
I've always said 600 points just isn't the one for it.
Lower side of silly nervous for a Witch King Solo list. Jesus Christ, 2024. Okay, and finally, Ali's Army of Dunland list.
We know where it's going. Come on,
Auger? Dog?
Army of Dog.
Army of Dogland.
Army of Dogland.
Dogland.
Dogs.
I think the only thing that's taken it out of the Ashley Walker tier is the fact that it's Ali playing it. If it was anybody else, it's
Ashley Walker. Ali, in his first appearance as a member of the Gollum's Gamers,
he doesnn't look happy about that decision either, does he?
No, not a happy bunny. I mean, that was a photo he sent me while he was at work one day, so I don't really,
clearly he has a thrilling job.
Looked at his phone. Very depressed. But he will be coming on a future episode. As yes, he is our newest recruit along with Ben as well. So he will be joining us very soon. But any changes for the tier list, or are we quite happy with things there? I think it looks pretty good. So Adam and I confirmed podium this weekend, hopefully.
Adam,
yeah.
Okay, but that is going to do it. So Will, thank you very much for joining us. And best of luck for. Has he just disconnected at the very end of the podcast?
He's like,
scared him off.
I'm leaving.
That is a tappable moment.
I scared him off, and I'm totally going to leave that in there, just how it is. So thank you to Will for joining us on the podcast. And Ben, thank you for coming. Obviously for your first time. Hope to have you on moving forward as well.
Cheers.
It's been good fun. Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching another episode of the Gollum's Gamers podcast.